welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to have fun because we are in the second half of Spooktober, which means that we're getting closer to Halloween, which is, as I said many times, my favorite time of the year. So today I'm going to show you and I'm going to recommend to you about 14 or 15 tarot and oracle decks depending on your taste in horror movies. So I've done this before with horror books and something funny happened. I think that the video went viral for the first few hours because I think that it was because the algorithms thought that I was showing or that I was recommending horror books rather than spooky tarot and oracle decks, even though it wasn't the title, so I don't know what happened there. But I even got someone commenting, these are tarot and oracle decks. I was expecting books, and I'm like, it's in the title. Anyway, if you're here because you're expecting recommendations for horror movies, I'm so sorry. I do love horror movies and we are going to talk about horror movies in this video, but the recommendation is just stemming from horror movie and it will be about tarot and oracle decks. I hope you still stay here with me. It's going to be fun anyways. So we're going to look at, as I said, either 14 or 15 decks, which is a lot of decks. I'm trying to go as fast as I can because otherwise it's going to be a 2 hours video. So they're all here. There's no rhyme or reasons in the order in which I'm going to show them to you. So let's start with the one on the top. So if you liked Pan's Labyrinth, you're going to love the Blood Moon Tarot by Sam Guy. Now this deck, well, my edition, this one here is the deluxe indie edition. However, this deck is being picked up mass market and you will be able to buy it mass market very soon, I believe. I'm not entirely sure because, as always, the release date in Australia is a bit skewed from the one in the US, but I imagine probably within a month or two. This is a really beautiful deck. The art style is what really convinced me to buy this deck when it was an indie edition. There was also a fantastic like art book, coffee table size book. Really cool with all of these art style. And for what I understand, the mass market edition will have a guidebook, not a coffee table size book, but it will have a guidebook. And in my case, I did not purchase the larger art book, let's say, and I did download the PDF files, so I was able to print it out. And I reckon that is the text that is going to be used to compose the guidebook that is going to come with the mass market version of this deck, which is perfectly fine because it was absolutely fine. Now, this one is my Pan's Labyrinth tarot deck. If you don't know that movie, it is absolutely fantastic. It is fantasy horror. There's a lot of magical realism as well in the movie. It's a story of she's a girl. She's a girl that enters this magical realm, and as always, you know, in every story that sees a young boy or a young girl entering a different world, there are rules and they need to be respected, and so they are well aware of what they're not supposed to do. But as always, you wouldn't have a story, you wouldn't have a movie otherwise. As always, they obviously break all of the rules, and of course that triggers the entire movie basically. It is really oniric. It does have a trance-like kind of vibes. The whole movie is like that. It is a kind of darker shade of fantasy. That's why it is also seen as a horror movie. There are monsters as well. It's not the jump scare kind of monster. It's the monster that establishes a bond between the protagonist and the monster itself, because the monster knows that you broke the rule. And so there is this kind of expectations, and that is probably the kind of horror movie that I prefer, out of just a malevolent entity that, you know, just out of the blue decides to make someone's life impossible. This one is definitely my Pan's Labyrinth tarot deck. Just as a bit of a warning, there will be spoilers about the movies that I'm going to talk about today. They are by no means, only one or two are recent movies, and the reason why I may have to give you spoilers is because I will have to hint at a couple of elements in the movie in order for me to explain the reason why I've chosen this particular deck to recommend to those of you who like that movie. Having said that, I will do my best not to give out any spoilers, and I will tell you when there is one. So, spoiler alert. So there is a scene in the fantasy world where the girl arrives and she sees a banquet full of food, fantastic food, and one of the rules is obviously do not eat from the table. And there is this monster, and this monster is basically protecting their eyes, just covering their eyes with their hands, and but their eyeballs are in their hands. So hence the reason why I love this deck so much, and I do feel like it's my Pan's Labyrinth tarot deck because of this. Basically, this character doesn't necessarily have she does have one eye, at least, that we can see here, but it's literally the composition, the way in which she keeps her hands, and the fact that there are what looks like eye bulbs on the ends that reminded me so much of that movie. And also the fact that there's a lot of other characters here that could very well be living in that fantastic world that has been created by Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro is the director of the Pan's Labyrinth. I think it's a really cool movie. As you can see, there's these are more like tadpoles, but they kind of look like eye bulbs, so there is that theme that comes and goes in the deck as well. Absolutely gorgeous deck. Just be prepared that when you do use this deck, whether it's the indie or the mass market edition, you will necessarily feel these kind of oniric vibes, so trance-like vibes, sleepy kind of the realm of dreams. That's another word that I use for this deck. It is something that really exudes strongly from the cards and the images. I wish I had bought the coffee table book because I think it's very beautiful. And one thing to say as well is that you cannot see it from the lens because obviously there is a little bit of brightness probably adjusted whilst I'm filming, but in real life some of these cards are rather dark, especially the full card. So if you do have the coffee table book of this deck, you will notice that this one is the full, for example. This is an incredibly beautiful card, but because it is rather dark, you might not be able to see it unless you spend some time on it, or unless you have the coffee table book, because the images are slightly tweaked in the brightness. So I'm kind of hoping that the mass market edition will do exactly the same, so that we'll be able to see. But there is a figure here. It's a giant figure veiled. There are hands here, for example, and this is literally opening up almost as if it were a book. So I'm just saying, you know, I'm really looking forward to the mass market edition because I'm looking forward to see whether there's a bit of a tweaking in the brightness of some of the darkest cards. And so this one was the first one. So if you loved Pan's Labyrinth, you're definitely going to like the Blood Moon Tarot. And then let's do this one. So the second one is, if you loved The Lost Boys, which is probably one of my favorite movie of all time. I am lucky enough to live in Sydney, Australia, where there is a cinema which is called the Hayden Orpheum, which is representing, and it did as well 2 years ago on the night of Halloween. This year will be on the 1st of November, but that's fine. it will present a double feature of The Goonies and then The Lost Boys following. And those are two, well, I wouldn't say that The Goonies is one of my favorite movies of all time. I would say The Lost Boys is. But The Goonies is a movie that really takes me back to when I was a young kid, because it's about, these kids that are desperately trying to stay together. They are friends and they're trying to stay together, but one of them have to move because they have to sell the house. Actually, they're repossessing the house. So it's really sad. And they want to go on the last adventure together, but they found a map to a treasure and they want to find the treasure. So there's all sorts of things, and I really, really love it. It's, every kid loves an adventure movie, and depending on your age, obviously, and depending on when you would have watched that movie, because it was obviously from, I believe, the 80s. And, nowadays technology, it will make you look at that movie and think that it was stupid, but obviously back then we didn't see it that way. And The Lost Boys. So The Lost Boys is absolutely fantastic. As I said, one of my favorite movies of all times. I think it's perfect. The plot is amazing. There's this family, a mother and two kids, that move with her father, so the grandpa, who was a bit of an oddball, and they move to this remote town in California where there's been occurrences of, spoiler alert, I'm not entirely sure whether it does say so in the synopsis or not, but basically there's vampires. And these vampires are wreaking havoc in this town. And so basically there's all sorts of adventures that follow, in which, the younger kid gets involved with a couple of kids his own age that want to hunt vampires. And so it's really, on the one hand, it's really adventurous, it's really funny, but it's also really dark and very sensual, not because there might be sex scenes, for example. It is a movie that you can watch with your, probably not your younger kids, but I believe it's 12 or older, 12 years of age or older. But it is very sensual because these are really attractive vampires. They're young, they're in the prime of life, they're really cool, they're wearing their leather jackets, they have, the hairstyle that was very, very cool in those years. And so they are presented in such a way that you really understand why someone could be convinced and seduced by their lifestyle and, to join them. So there is this dynamic that plays out, and it's really, really cool. Now, because of that, especially referring to, let's say, the lifestyle, the really cool vibes that remind me a lot of any movie with James Dean, basically, it's that kind of vibes. If you love The Lost Boys, you will love this tarot deck, which is the Gothic Tarot of Vampires. Now, this one is a mass market deck that was published by Los Carabel. However, right now is unfortunately out of print. You can find it for, let's put it this way, for non-outrageous prices. I found this one at the Tokyo Tarot Museums for a very reasonable price, actually. Almost, I would say there are mass market decks now that sells for more than what I paid for this one, even though it is out of print. This one, as I said, it's super duper cool. As you can see, it's also very essential. It is one of those decks that let's say it's focusing on one aspect of the lore around vampires. It's all about that sense of living a really rich life, a really cool life. And so there's a lot to be said about that, because vampires are people of the world. They are refined, they have refined taste. Think about Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, for example. I could have listed that movie, it's just that I do prefer The Lost Boys. But it is very similar in that regards. So vampires are also They have a fantastic culture. They know everything. They read everything. They watch opera. They listen to refined music. If they're modern vampires, they go to the movies. Think about The Addiction, for example, by Abel Ferrara. So there is a lot of lore related to vampires that really shows them as the chosen one, the ones that can actually live a certain type of life in opposition to us common mortals that have to go to work in the morning. So it is a very satisfying kind of trope for me, because there's always that dichotomy between the normal person that has to work and has a mortgage to pay, and they're not beautiful, and they grow old, and maybe they put on weight and stuff like that they're always kind of seduced by the lifestyle of a vampire, because a vampire is everything but. So it's completely the opposite of what we go through. They are sensual, they never grow old, they're always beautiful. They always end up being super duper wealthy. I don't know how. I mean, they live forever, they never die. Well, I mean, there are ways to kill them, obviously. But so it's really interesting to see that kind of aspect, which I believe is so ingrained in all of the lore of vampires, that is actually really interesting to look at the evolution of the figure of the vampires throughout all of the books and all of the movies. That's something that I really like doing. By the way, if you are a member of my channel, we just voted. I believe I'm leaving the poll up for another couple of days, and then we're just gonna close it. But we voted for the next deck study, and because I wanted it to be a scary or spooky deck for Spooktober, and because there's so many decks that can be referred to vampire themed deck, or zombie or bones or skeleton themed decks, or gothic themed decks, or ghost themed decks, and so on and so forth. I gave my members the possibility to choose a topic rather than a specific deck, and I think that the vampire topic is the one that is winning so far. And so we are going to have a look at many different vampire decks, not just, for example, this one. This one will definitely be one of them that we're going to study, but we're going to look at many others. And it's also because this one, as I said, it is an auto-print deck, so I would never force my members to buy and spend a lot of money on a deck, or on any deck at all, if that matters, because I believe that we can always find the way to do even a deck study with all the material that I propose to you. They are prepared. I literally print out books. Entire books. So at the end of a deck study, you can print all of the material, you'll have a book for the study of a certain deck. So we're going to focus on probably, unless the vote changes somehow, but we're probably going to study vampire lore throughout 5 or 6 different decks. So the Tarot Vampires by Ian Daniels, this one, but also the Vampire Tarot by Charles Harrington. There's a number of Tarot V by Alejandro Colucci. There's so many out there. It's very easy to find, even in mass market, very affordable vampire deck. But that was a communication. So if you want to join my membership for the next deck study, I always, when I propose a new deck study, I always gain like 10-20 members within a few days, because people really respond to deck studies. So they're actually lots and lots of fun. And what we're doing now, we're also incorporating the deck study into 2 recurring videos that I'm doing for my members. So the Energies of the Week video, and also the members reading. So I do tarot readings for my members every other Saturday, and we're going to use that specific deck that we're studying. So, but as I was saying, if you like the Lost Boys, you will love the Gothic Tarot of Vampires. And the next one is Shatter Island. If you liked Shatter Island, you will love I'm going to show you 3 decks this time. The Divya Moon Tarot. And I'm going to show you the Divya Moon Tarot together with the Zama Twins Oracle and the Abandoned Oracle, simply because they are, all 3 of them are by Patrick Valenza. This one is mass market deck. It's a borderless edition of the mass market version. It is still available, still on stock if you want to buy this edition. The other edition is with white borders. And it's very affordable, very easy to find. These 2, however, are not mass market, they are indie, but they're still available, I believe. Not the X-ray edition. So the Abandoned Oracle, I believe, is still in stock in Patrick's website, together with the Zama Twins. This one is the 2nd edition. However, the X-ray edition of the Abandoned Oracle is, I do believe that it's sold out. I don't know whether there has been a reprint. Perhaps there have been. So if you liked Shutter Island. So Shutter Island was a movie from probably 10 years ago, or maybe slightly more, with Leo DiCaprio, Mark Ruffalo and others. It was full of twists. It's a story that is literally full of twists. So I do want you to enjoy it, and I don't want to reveal anything, so there won't be any spoilers. But what I can tell you is that it's based in an asylum. So obviously it's back in the days in which these kind of hospitals were still called asylums. I would say that nowadays there's still facilities that, let's say, are dedicated to the healing of people with mental illnesses and discomfort. Thank goodness we don't call them asylum anymore. It's also because back then the term asylum was incredibly derogative, as in it was referring to a very specific kind of facility where people were not treated like humans. They were treated like animals. But no, I don't even want to say animals, because I don't want to see animals treated that way either. So they were just, the conditions were atrocious. And you do kind of see that in the movie at a certain point. So if that is a trigger, let that be your warning not to watch the movie. However, the movie itself is absolutely fantastic, full of twists, as I said. It blew my mind, but as I also said, I needed to watch it probably a couple of times in order to understand everything that was going on. The first one was just really focusing on the cinematography, which is also really, really good. So, because it's based in an asylum, what I wanted to show you was the Divya Moon together with the other 2 Oracle decks, because the story of the Divya Moon, perhaps you don't know this, but Patrick Valenza has actually explained that. And ironically, there's also a coffee table size book that I do have this time, because it's also very easy to find. I actually bought it from my local Kinokuniya bookstore. And it just stemmed from Patrick's dreams, but he built up a whole story about an actual asylum, and the book really explained that really well. And it also talks about the cards and the way in which they were born, and it shows you the sketches of the very first edition of those cards and then the evolution. So it's extremely interesting. I believe it's around 65 Australian dollars, so maybe you might want to check it out. So this is an incredibly twisted kind of deck, and that's the reason why I made that association, with Shutter Island, because I think that not everyone likes this deck. I actually know that for a fact, not everyone does. And of course it's perfectly fine, because we all have the right to like or dislike a deck. And sometimes it's just that it doesn't resonate with us, and that's completely fine. What I wanted to point out though is that there is so much that can be said about the work that Patrick has done to create these decks. This is a whole world. It reminds me a bit of the, let's say, the monumental effort that Andrea Aste always puts on his decks. It is very similar because it's a world building kind of action, and Patrick and Andrea have a very similar way to approach their creation. It's their baby, and they really build this world around their baby, and it's just an absolutely fantastic way to approach tarot and oracle decks. So these are, just for you to know, they are kind of twisted in the sense that I don't know whether I should put some warning, because some of these cards are, how should I say this? They may trigger a bit of a reaction because the brain immediately goes to certain parts of the card that they do not correspond to what we usually see. And so there might be some kind of a reaction that could be, you might feel a little bit grossed out by some of these cards. But it is an incredibly amazing experience when you do use it. Obviously, I use mostly the Deviant Moon Tarot. By the way, there's supposed to be a Deviant Moon Oracle deck. Patrick was talking about it in his Instagram account. And I believe that it was also teasing us with a few images of cards. But I haven't heard anything in a while, so I don't know whether that's been postponed or something. Patrick is notoriously, he takes his time, which is fine because, you know, we want to have something that feels completely finished. And it is, because it's always something incredibly interesting and incredibly, you know, it does elicit a reaction. You cannot pretend that these cards do not affect you in one way or another. And that is also part of the reasons why I love that movie is the same. It's because I can watch a movie without necessarily caring about the protagonist, but with Shutter Island, I care about all of them. It's incredible acting. Kudos, chapeau to all of the actors because it's really incredible. But at the same time, the storyline, especially Leo DiCaprio's character's storyline, it is incredibly poignant, and it is made in such a way that you do feel bad for him, like you kind of empathize. I feel the same for these characters because if my immediate impression is to be grossed out by the fact that they look weird and odd and different, and my brain is like, nah, this one doesn't really exist in real life, my second impression is, let's try and understand why they are like this. So this one, for example, is the Death card. It's incredibly poignant because it may look like a cruel act, a mother that is actually, you know, pushing down the son, literally with her feet on his head, with her foot on his head. But if you read the meaning of this card, it's actually very deep because it says the mother is kind of trying to teach the son that he cannot just go back into the safety of the womb because this is life, and it's better to learn that life is cruel. It's better to learn that you are on your own as soon as possible, because that's when you'll be able to develop the sorts of skills that you need in order to go through life. And so I always found these explanations incredibly poignant, incredibly making me incredibly emotional because it's very beautiful as well. And so, you know, I can talk about this deck for hours, and I'm not going to, because otherwise we're going to stay here for hours, and that's not what I want. But I just wanted to say, I know that there's many of you that, as I said, do not resonate with this deck, and that's perfectly fine. But I would say this. If you do like Shutter Island, you will see that all of the humanity that is presented in Shutter Island is here as well. Even though it might not look like it, but it is here as well. Okay, the next one is, if you liked Phenomena by Dario Argento, you will love the Tarocchi Gialli. So this is obviously a group of people that participate to the creative effort. It is a fantastic deck. It was a reward from a Kickstarter campaign for a couple of years ago, I believe. This is inspired by Italian horror movie cinema and the posters related to that. And it's mainly based on the films from the 60s and the 70s. And I was actually reading about Mario Bava and Dario Argento. So Phenomena is by Dario Argento. And by the way, it's with Jennifer Connelly. So the version that I watched was dubbed in Italian, but I believe that you might actually be able to find the original English. There's a lot of English actors there. It is on Tubi. If you have Tubi, it's free. You can stream it there, but it's in Italian in Tubi. It's in Italian with English subtitles. It is a fantastic movie. Let me explain to you why. Because first of all, it is uber cool. It is one of those movies that really set the tone for a whole decade. It is one of those movies that when I didn't watch the movies at the cinema because I was too little, I would not have been able to enter. I believe it is, I don't know, mature to audiences only, because there are, well, it's a pure horror movie slasher, I would say, if I had to pick a genre. But there's a little bit of supernatural as well. So the protagonist, which is Jennifer Connelly, as I said, she has how should I say this? An affinity. She has an affinity with insects, bugs, basically. And that, well, that, I don't want to give out spoilers, so how should I say this? It is something that will become crucial in the movie. So she goes to a college, a very exclusive college in Switzerland, but her dad is a horror movie actor or director, I don't remember. In any case, she is super cool. The way she dresses, she has, in one of the first scenes, they go to bed and she has a pajama by Giorgio Armani, you know, Armani, with the Armani eagle on the back. So it's black with the Armani eagle on the back, which covers all the back, so it's rather large as a logo, in gold. I cannot tell you how many times I have been pestering my mom and dad for them to buy me that pajama. I wanted that pajama. It was like, I really want this. This is, if I have it, I will be the coolest girl at school. And it was that kind of movie. It was creating a fashion. And that is something that I don't know whether in the States you will have the same, but in Italy, more often than not, you will have this phenomenon in which there is a movie that everyone watches and everyone loves for different reasons, but it just creates a fashion trend in and by itself for the way in which some things are presented, you know, the way in which the characters behave, maybe a catchphrase that they use, maybe something, a jumper or, you know, a pajama that they use. There's a number of things that are really, really pressed upon the imagination of people who watch the movie and an entire generation. So Phenomena is a cult. It has become a cult movie. I personally really love it. I was reading an essay on the story of horror movies throughout the decades in, you know, pretty much 4 or 5 different countries. So we were looking at, for example, English movies, American movies, Italian movies, and German movies. And that was really interesting. I highly recommend it. It's called The Story of Horror, or The History, sorry, of Horror. And they were really agree with me. I did have this theory before, but I found it confirmed. This author also believes that Italian movies had an entire had a lot of influence upon an entire generation, especially the movies from the 60s and the 70s, even though they may have been watched by people in the 80s and 90s, like I did, because I wasn't alive in the 60s anyway. So this tarot deck is called Tarocchi Gialli. So giallo was the term that was used, that was literally minted. Well, no, it was minted to refer to a number of thriller books that have a yellow cover from the 20s and 30s, 1920s and 30s. But it was then applied to these type of movies from Mario Bava and Dario Argento from the 60s and the 70s. And these these cards are inspired by that. This is a fantastic deck. I really, really love it. And as I always say, this is Venice, by the way. Hi. So I always say this when I talk about this deck, because it is something that it's very important to understand the dynamics that you can find in those movies. You wouldn't be able to find those dynamics in movies now, by the way. There was an exploitation of the female body that, seriously. But anyway, historically speaking, there were reasons behind that. Not that I would agree, but so be it. So there was a lot to deal about the 60s and the 70s in Italy about terrorism. Unfortunately, we did have a lot of terrorist attacks in those years, also in the 80s. And I always say I have a very personal story that I always tell at this point, but this video is gonna be super duper long. Just to cut a very long story short, there was a shooting. There were frequent shootings, and my mum, when I was, I don't know, a few months old, my mum heard a knock at the door. There was one of our neighbors with her baby, and she came in and she was like, "Can I come in? Because I'm really scared because the shooting, I heard shooting and it was very close, and I think that's some of the bullets came in inside, from a window in my apartment." And so obviously, my mom said, "Yeah, sure, of course." And then later on, her husband and my dad went back to their apartment, and they found that in this friend of mine, because he's a friend of mine, obviously we live together, we live close to each other. In his own room, there was a bullet hole in the wall, just 1 meter from his cot. So when he was sleeping. So, that's the kind of things that was actually kind of normal during those years in Italy because of terrorism. And it's something that I really respond to, of course, and something that I also kind of see in these movies, and as a consequence of that, in this deck. And to lighten a little bit the tone, let's talk about Beetlejuice. So if you like Beetlejuice, you're actually going to like the Beetlejuice Tarot. You wouldn't believe it. It's by Insight Edition. What? What is going on with Insight Edition? This one is from last year, by the way. I really applaud them. And my applauding them is not to say that I always like what they do. It is to say that we need to tell them that they've done a good job. We need to condition them. If you have a cat or a dog, you will know what that means. You need to train them. We need to condition them to say, good job, well done, good boy. Because in this case, the minors are actually fully cynic. I do not like the concertina-like foil here, whatever, for a guidebook. I do not open it. I don't feel like opening it. Why did I have to do this? I know that they were looking for something cool, and I know that it's also because there is not a concertina, but the other playing instrument that is very similar to a concertina, accordion. So there is an accordion in the movie, so maybe that's the reason why they were going for this kind of thing. But honestly, guys, if you want people to actually read what you're writing, please make it a book and make it easy to read and make it easy to open and use, etc. This, I love the idea, really cool. Yeah, you're cool, okay? But I don't feel like opening it because, well, first of all, it's huge and I've got candles everywhere here. So in any case, let's go. Sorry, I'm not venting. I'm actually really happy that they made this deck. It's actually quite cool. Other decks are not as cool. Look at the inside of this box. Isn't it just really fantastic? And also, I really love the backs. So, as I was saying, I am stoked by the fact that the minors in this deck are fully cynic, not just the majors, not just the chord cards, and they're actually really good. It's very easy to remember. Well, obviously you need to have watched the movie a couple of times, but you will be able to connect the cards with the moment, that particular scene in the movie, and they're really, really, really nice. So the meanings between the cards and the scenes that is depicted on the card and the tarot card itself is not always straight, so you don't make the association straight away, or at least I don't. Probably because I've only watched the movie a couple of times, so maybe I should watch it another time just to be sure. So for example, I do remember something about this guy. He went on an exploration in Africa and he was captured by a tribe. That's why it looks like that. But you know, if I watch the movie again, I would probably understand why it's referred to the hermit, or maybe not. But in any case, I'm just so happy that the miners are scenic, that I'm happy, you know, I would just accept, I would take anything. I would take anything at this point. I would take anything for Insight Edition to keep on going down this road rather than going back to half scenic, half lazy peep miners, because there's decks like that. For example, the Ghostbuster deck was such a letdown for me. I rehomed it. I love the Ghostbuster movie, but the Ghostbuster deck is just not doing it for me. And that goes, you know, for many other decks, unfortunately. This one is really well done. Good job. Keep on doing that. Good job. So there is another movie that I know that there are a lot of you that really consider also a cult movie. I think that it's really out of this world. It's just so weird. It's called Five Nights at Freddy's. And it's a movie, but it's actually, I think that the movie has been released after the video game. So I actually watched the movie, not the video game, but I haven't played the video game. It's a bit too many jump scares, too many difficult things for me. I like Until Dawn, I like Man on Medan, and you know, that trilogy, or Easy 5 video games that I remember. The Quarry, for example, really loved it. But in any case, the tarot deck that you will like if you like Five Nights at Freddy is the Whimsical Realm of Oddities. This deck, I had immediately the impression that it was reminding me of Five Nights at Freddy's, because, well, okay, if you don't know Five Nights at Freddy's, it's neither the video game or the movie. It's basically the group of teenagers, I believe, that they enter this place called Freddy's, and they have to survive all of the threats that happen, especially at night. There's mechanical rabbits and all sorts of figures. So technically it's supposed to be some kind of a wonderland, you know, those places that have a lot of mechanics inside, and you play with them, like a mechanical horse, for example, that you find in the shopping mall, and you put your kid in there. Is the same, but with on steroids basically. And at night they all come to life, and of course they're slashers. They're all slashers, so they want to kill you and you have to survive. And it's basically, that is the gist of both the video game and also the movie. The reason why I'm actually comparing this deck to the movie is because these could literally be characters that you find inside that place. I kid you not, it's just all of them. It is an incredible deck. The vibes of this deck, I mean, look at this. The vibes of this deck are fantastic. I personally really like it. It is obviously one of those decks that is kind of really odd and weird, and it is called the Whimsical Realm of Oddities. So obviously we're talking about the whimsical side, but also the odd side. And sometimes these kind of decks don't make a perfect reader. They're not fantastic decks to be used for divination. But I don't mind, because I'm also a tarot collector, and as a matter of fact, I do believe that out of all of my decks, which is about 650 now, give or take 10 or 20 decks, I don't use all of them, not just for divination, but I do have a lot of practices related to my tarot deck. So I would do, child healing practices, shadow work, but also light work. I would do meditation. I would do journal prompts. But also because I have a membership and we work a lot with my members, I post basically 2 to 3 videos every week. For my members, I use a lot of my decks for that purpose. But out of 650 decks, I really think that the majority is for collection purposes rather than for using them. So when I buy a deck, I do ask myself if I'm going to use it. I ask myself, for example, do I have a deck that would cover what this deck covers? And if I do, I don't necessarily buy it unless there are other reasons. For example, is it a deck that is a collectible item? Do I want it for my collection? Then in that case, I would definitely buy it if I can afford it. Sometimes I ask myself, is there value in it? Not that I'm ever going to sell my collectible items, I really don't think so, but you do make that kind of reasoning as well. Is it an investment? Sometimes you do reason that way when you're looking for a deck, especially when they're expensive because they're out of print and hard to find. This one is a deck, by the way, that is available on Vermilion Collection. So it's not a mass market deck. However, the prices of these decks, they're always on discount, and you can find a lot of decks, especially on Tevada and Vermilion Collection, with reasonable prices. And if you liked Fight Night at Freddy's, you will find that the vibes are exactly the same in this deck. Now we're going to talk about a movie that I did not love, but I love the book. I hope that makes sense. So it's The Girl with All the Gifts. The Girl with All the Gifts was originally a book, it was a fantastic book. I absolutely loved it. I loved the atmosphere, I loved the story, I loved the plot. I really cared for the characters. I really, really invested my emotional being in the lives of these characters. I was crying for them. I was scared for them. I rooted for them. It was an incredible adventure to read that book. And because of that, I think that my expectations when I watched the movie were probably too high, and I did not get the same emotional impact that I did get from the book. But because we're talking about movies, let's talk about it. So basically, I won't spoil it if you want to read it or watch it, but the whole thing is, the concept is about a fungus. There's a fungus, and it's very similar to The Last of Us. If you play the video game The Last of Us, you would definitely recognize the storyline. So there is this infection that is spread through this fungus, and this fungus is literally taking over people's bodies and minds, especially because it wants to reproduce, it wants to spread like a fungus does. Think about mold, for example. And because of that, humanity is basically fighting to survive. And there's I would say that more in The Last of Us, especially, I would say the TV show, but also the video game, you will see literally mushroom coming out of eyes, noses, ears, and mouths of people who have been infected. There is a little bit of that in The Girl with All the Gifts, because it does show these kind of mushroom expanding and such, but it's a little bit less. But if you liked the movie, either the TV show The Last of Us, or the movie The Girl with All the Gifts, or the book, you will definitely love the Midnight Magic, because it feels like it's literally a depiction of that invasion and contagion of fungus. So it is an incredibly beautiful deck. I really, really like it. I actually posted a video probably a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember, in which I was pairing it up with the Mushroom Oracle, the mini Mushroom Oracle from Rockpool and also the Mushroom Oracle from Red Wheel, and comparing both of them and just deciding which one was the best one to pair up with this one. It came out that the one from Red Wheel, because of the art style and the aesthetics, is the better pair for the Midnight Magic Tarot, but the Mushroom deck from Rockpool was actually a better deck in and on itself. This is really cool. It's a really cool deck. Aesthetically, I absolutely love it. I love the fact that the background is black because it makes it really cool. And also, it brings out the colors obviously as well. But I also really think the little that I know about mushroom, which is not zero, because I used to go mushrooms. Is it hunting? No. I don't know, when you look for mushrooms anyway. I used to go with my dad all the time when I was little. My auntie used to have a house in the Dolomites in Italy, and it's a normal activity to do. You go in the mountains in Italy, in the Dolomites especially, and you find mushrooms pretty much everywhere, especially one day after it rains, especially if it's sunny, so they grow like mushrooms. See what I did there? And I was fascinated by them because they are really colorful, but they also, the rule is that the more colorful a mushroom is, the more poisonous it is. So obviously you don't pick it up. Just so you know, in many cases, some of these release their spores whenever you touch them. So if it's a poisonous one, you're supposed to wash your hand immediately afterwards, because if you touch your face especially, you can actually get some kind of, you can be affected by the spores, even not by eating them, but just because there is contact. And I just really believe that for the little that I know about mushrooms, these are actually spot on when it comes to the association between the mushroom and the tarot card. So I think it's a deck that has been really well thought. Like there's an effort here, you can tell, and it reads actually really well. And you don't necessarily need to know a lot about mushroom, but you do need to go back and forth between the book and the deck every now and then, because I wouldn't say it's a beginner's deck. It is, however, a mass market deck, and it's still pretty much available. And if you liked Hellraiser, you will definitely love the Tarot Obscuro. I think that Hellraiser is an older movie and everyone will know the poster. I'm pretty sure everyone will know the poster, because this figure of this being with all these needles sticking out, and so that is what I would call the stuff of nightmares, literally. The Tarot Obscuro by Lotta Glibotskaya is a reward from a Kickstarter campaign from also a couple of years ago. I personally like it. However, I have been told by some of you that some of these cards are triggering. So if incredibly darker themes and quite disturbing images are a trigger for you, I would recommend skipping ahead, because there are some disturbing images in this deck. Having said that, Hellraiser is quite disturbing. So, like for like. But I know that there's a lot of you that loved Hellraiser, and it took me a while. It's something that I will have to say I did not understand immediately. I didn't completely like it. It wasn't one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's not even now, but I would say I have learned to appreciate it. It grew on me, and I would definitely say that this deck is the perfect representative for that movie, because as you can see here, the vibes are really dark. There is not one card in which there are no darker vibes. As I said, also many of these images are actually rather triggering, probably very disturbing. Maybe this one is still okay, but the darkness of the face, the calculated angle in which the person is posed, in order for us not to be able to see the face and everything. It just speaks very loud about a way in which someone wants to portray this deck, these images. And also, it also talks about the vibe of the deck itself. I have tried, I won't lie to you, I cannot read with this deck. I have tried, I have. This one somehow is one of the most disturbing images for me. I don't know why. So I have tried reading with it. This one is Hellraiser. I mean, it's not exactly like Hellraiser, like the poster, but it's not too much difference. I don't know whether I like it or not. I mean, I do like it as a deck, as a collectible item. I do not resonate with the cards when I try reading with it. It is what it is, and as I said, not all of these decks, not all of my decks, as a matter of fact, as I was saying earlier, the majority of my decks, I keep them because they are collectible items, or at least I keep them because in my collection they resonate as a deck that I want to keep, that I want to look at. I want to look at these cards. That there is a space in my life for these type of images, as disturbing and dark as they are. As a matter of fact, I think that the Death card is actually quite beautiful. The Page of Wands is incredibly dark for me, and others are a little bit more pippish, like the Six of Wands that is rather pippish. But I did want to say this is the perfect Hellraiser deck. So if you did enjoy the movie, you would definitely like this deck. And if you liked The Grudge, the Japanese version of The Grudge, you will definitely love the Soul Splash Tarot. Now, as far as Japanese horror movies go, I don't always like them, but I do prefer, whenever they are remade in the US, I actually always prefer the original Japanese one. For example, Ring, I think that the original Japanese was really, really cool. But I'm not a fan of the American version, and it doesn't say anything about my love for American movies, because I do love them. It's just that particular, every time that there is a remake in the US of a Japanese movie, I just don't think that they capture the reason why I love the Japanese version. To me, there's something about Japan, the supernatural, the yokai, the culture that you really breathe in the air when you are in Japan, that you cannot replicate in an American movie with American settings. So that's just my opinion. As always, you also guys, I will remind you that I absolutely love Japan. I love everything that comes out of Japan. As you can see, let me just put my hair. I have a samurai t-shirt today because I have a few of these. I just really, really love them. There is something to this deck. The art style is very similar to Junji Ito. So if you're familiar with that style, there's many others as well. So I was thinking about, for example, comparing this to Uzumaki, which is also a movie, but it's Junji Ito's book. And Junji Ito is a graphic artist and storyteller. And obviously it's all about horror. But it is very, very similar to his style and others that belong to his school. Obviously, there's more than one. This is one of those that this card, if you have watched The Grudge, the original Japanese, you will know what moment I was saying of the movie I'm referring to. This is literally just, it looks like it's coming out of the movie. I personally really like this style, this really demonic eyes and the teeth, always almost vampire-esque kind of teeth, as you can see. There's also this kind of atmosphere in which the monster is looking directly at you, like in this card, for example, and engaging with you, breaking the fourth wall and asking you to recognize that you're in front of them. So it's not a monster that you look away from. Like for me, for example, Alien, the alien in Alien. The monster in Alien is a monster that I find, especially in the first iteration of the movie, they don't always show, because it's more like the idea, the psychological terror of being close to a being that whose blood is acid and so on and so forth. In this case, instead, it feels like you can literally look at this scene. If it's a horror movie, you can look at this scene for even 5 or 6 seconds and you still keep the terror level really high, because there is sentience. This is a sentient being and very similar to a human being, and that is what's disturbing, but at the same time enjoyable if you like horror movies. Obviously, if you don't like horror movies, you will not like these decks. But I really enjoy this deck. I like looking at it. I think that it's absolutely perfect, the way in which it's combining the images, this style with the meaning of the cards in tarot is perfect. I really think that it's difficult to do. Sometimes you will see some tarot decks that look absolutely stunning, but they fall short of communicating to you the meaning of the card. This one is perfect. It's superb. It's done with a mastering of both the artistic skills but also the tarot knowledge in an amazing way. And I also really truly like it. Look at the Page of Cups, for example. That is a monster that has tentacles for legs. So of course there is that marine or watery kind of theme, but at the same time she's dressed like a maiden. So you don't look at it like a queen. It is clearly a page. So there's a lot of symbols in these images that definitely resonate for a tarot reader and not just a tarot collector. Even though I would say I don't read with this deck, it is just a deck. As a matter of fact, you will probably hear me say this a number of times in this video. I don't read with these decks unless it is for a I don't know, if I go to a Halloween party and I go there as a tarot reader, I stopped doing that because I just want to enjoy it. I used to do it all the time to make money, obviously, but now it's like, I really want to enjoy an Halloween party. I don't want to have to sit there for like 4 hours and read cards to people and not even be able to enjoy being in a party. But when I used to do readings at parties, if it was a Halloween party, someone would definitely ask me, can you please use a spooky deck? And then I would just bring a few and I would say, is this one okay? Is that one okay? And in that case, it would always be kind of light readings, because I wouldn't use these kind of decks for, many of them I would use for shadow work, but I wouldn't go to a Halloween party to do shadow work with someone, you know what I mean? So it would have to be something that would be in the vibes of the party. And the next one is, if you liked The Others with Nicole Kidman, you will absolutely love The Unfinished Business, a ghostly tarot by MJ Cullinane. Let me just zoom out because this one is rather larger. So this one is a let me put it this way, this is an indie deck. However, we kind of know that MJ's got a good contract with Hay House, and sooner or later her decks get printed by Hay House. So I spent a lot on the Forhaxa when it was released, because it was during the pandemic. I bought it directly from her. Kudos to MJ, because she was the only one to still ship stuff to Australia. I actually sent her an email to say that and say thank you for that. Her and Eric Mail. So when I was, I spent a lot on the Faraxa because I did not know if it was going to go mass market. I really wanted it. It's a fantastic deck. And then it was picked up mass market. So now, honestly, unless I know for sure that it's not going to be picked up mass market, I don't tend to buy indie decks from NJ. She does still release decks just for indie production. But in any case, so this one is still an indie deck, but as I said, I haven't heard about it, but it could go mass market. It's The Unfinished Business. So obviously we're talking about some type of unfinished business for someone who's passed on, but not literally passed on, because they have unfinished business, and so they linger. And the fact that they linger, it makes them ghost. Obviously, that is the whole thing about a ghost, is that it's someone that is, that is not human, no longer human, because they died somehow, but they cannot move on to beyond the veil, because they still stick around because they have this unfinished business. Now, if you have watched the others, so it is difficult to talk about the others, especially related to this deck, without giving the main twist away. So what I can say is this: Nicole Kidman moves to a new mansion. It is also dabbing on the trope of the haunted house, and there's stuff happening around the house that doesn't really have an explanation. Some stuff is actually kind of scary, really disturbing, and she's trying to find the reason of behind all of these things happening. So I'm just gonna say this: obviously there are ghosts. And the ghosts are there because of unfinished business. That's all I'm going to say about it, because if you want to watch it, it's a fantastic movie, really cool. And actually, the twist at the end is a twist that nowadays, it has been used a couple of times after the others, but when the movie was released, I'm not going to say that was the first time, because it's never the first time for anything. Everything has already been thought of and done, but it wasn't that common of a twist as you would expect it to be nowadays. And so I really love this deck. It is my favorite ghost tarot. There's other ghost tarot decks. This one is by far my favorite. It's also because the book is incredibly interesting. It reads like the anthology of Spoon River, as in, they have these stories, and you end up caring about the characters. You end up feeling sorry for them, or feeling anything for them, because it really is very engaging. It's a fantastic deck, and if you liked the others, you will love this deck. We're almost done. Hang in there. So now we're going to talk about a movie that I have absolutely no problems in saying it's my favorite movie of 2025, not just a horror movie. It is by far my favorite movie of 2025, and it will remain my favorite movie for a long time. I had an amazing time watching it. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved also the way in which the characters were brought to life by the actors, fantastic actors. And it's Sinners. If you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor, especially if you like, and it's not, so it is a horror movie, okay, it is a horror movie, and it is about vampires. That is not a secret, it's in the synopsis. But let me tell you something. You would not think that it's just about vampires. This is about life. That movie is about life, and it's about music, and how music throughout the century, there is a fantastic scene in which they're dancing, everyone is dancing, and it's one song, so it's about 5 minutes. And in these 5 minutes, the camera just goes around and showing you these people dancing on the dance floor, but they change costume to show you the ways in which music has evolved through times, and in particular black music, and it's just mind-blowing. I loved it so much. And on the one hand, there's this, soul that is brought, because the music is very central to the whole movie. It's literally the reason why there is a movie with that plot, is that there's a couple of brothers, twins, that they're thinking about opening up a speakeasy, and they want the artists and the musicians of blues music to come and play, and they do, and it's just so enjoyable, absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, there's, let me put the spoiler alert, unfortunately, because I have to tell you about this. There is a scene in which, so we know there's vampires, yeah? Okay, we know that. So there's a scene in which the main vampire, the head vampire, is just saying, come with us. Let me turn you, into a vampire. Come with us. You will never have a better life. We are all together. We are a community. You will feel that. There's no racism between vampires because we're all vampires. There's no discrimination of any kind. You will not have all of these problems. There is, at the beginning of the movie, by the way, there is also a mention to the Ku Klux Klan. So obviously there is this thematic throughout the movie as well. And and this vampire is saying, why won't you join me? It's a perfect life. You will always be happy. You always be with family, within your community, with friends. We'll always make music together. And it's so tempting. And I was talking about this movie with a close friend of mine. I was like, you have to watch it. I won't tell you much, but I told her about this proposal. Come be turned and be with us. And I'm like, when there is this scene, during that scene, I thought to myself, where do I sign? Because it sounded really powerful, and it was just a very strong theme throughout the whole movie. Like there's characters that now and again they will think about it. They will think, hang on a second, but they are tempted. I'm not gonna spoil too much. So when we're looking, if you liked Sinners like I loved, you would definitely love these two decks, because they are basically about what's important in a movie. Let me just zoom out a little bit further. So this is the Rhythm and Soul Tarot and the Southern Gothic Oracle by the same creator, Stacey Williams Young. And these are both, so this one is a Kickstarter campaign also from a couple of years ago, or maybe last year. This one you can actually, I believe that you can now find both these decks in Stacey's shop. So they are indie though, so obviously it comes with the fact that they might not be so affordable and so on and so forth. But personally, I do see nowadays, if I'm paying $60 Australian for the Southern Gothic, which is what I paid for, and I see a mass market deck from La Scarabeo priced at $85, at the end of the day, I go with the indie or I go with whatever resonates most, but I'm not scared by the fact that the price tag for an indie deck is 60 when the mass market is 85. You know what I mean? In any case, so these two, absolutely, they go together. Let me just set it up. Okay, so I also have integrated the Horns pack. So the Horns was released after the first Southern Gothic Oracle, and it doesn't have numbers, but I believe that there has been a recent Kickstarter campaign. As you can see, this card belongs to the Horns pack because it doesn't have a number at the top. So I believe there's been recently another Kickstarter campaign. I do not want to back Kickstarter campaigns from Stacey any longer because I had a terrible experience with, it's not her fault, it's because of shipping cost. With this tarot deck, it was $93 just the shipping. Not the deck and the shipping, just the shipping, and it was just a deck. It wasn't 3-4 decks, it was just one deck. So I found that if I buy from her shop and I get this sent to my Parcel Collect service in Oregon, it's like $50 cheaper. And then I have sent it to Australia, it still saves me like $50. So in any case, as I said, it's not her fault. I believe that sometimes it happens, that shipping is just really out of this world. So as I was saying, these two decks together, they really give you the idea, especially when you look at, for example, this card here. It does remind me of a very specific scene from the movie. So the music, the rhythm and blues It's very powerful. It's a very powerful fiery force that leads the manifestation and the intention behind the creation of this deck, I believe. I also know that, for example, there's a playlist associated, music playlist associated with this deck, and you see that there's a lot of instruments, of course. So it is absolutely fantastic. I really do believe that we do see in these cards portrayed the soul of the Sinners movie. It is very much so, and but because, you know, the Sinners movie is obviously about vampires as well, I like to pair it up with the Southern Gothics because of the Haunted Pack. Because, you know, it does give you that kind of horror movie kind of atmosphere, so it's a perfect pairing, and I really love these two together. And I love the Sinners movie. It's probably, as I said, I'm really struggling to think that there's gonna be a movie even next year or 10 years or 50 years from now that is going to be, you know, better, that I'm going to enjoy more than the Sinners. There will be, because there always is, but wow, what a movie. Another one of my favorite horror movies of all time is actually a musical, and it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I just love that show so much. It's a movie, but because I lived in London at the Prince Charles Theatre, every Sunday night I had the possibility to go. I went there probably 6 or 7 times. And if you live in London, do yourself a favor. I do believe that they still show it, or maybe not. I'm not entirely sure, so I haven't lived in London for a long time. I'm going back to London on the 17th of November, something around that, because on the 21st of November, I'm going to be at the College for Psychic Studies. Yes. Presenting the magazine, The Discombobulator, of which I'm a permanent contributor. The Discombobulator is created by the artistic, fantastic mind of Andrea Aste. So we're going to present it together with Sasha Graham and Letizia Barbier, and you know, many others that have contributed to Number Zero. So that's the launch. So I will be back in London. I will definitely make sure to check whether there's still you know, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They still show it at the Prince Charles Theatre, because that would be fantastic, a blast from the past. So if you haven't watched it, it's horror, but it's also really cool. It's all about music. It's all about being super duper cool. There's a protagonist, a trans, and it's really cool to watch a movie that talks about these themes from so many decades ago, because I believe I wasn't able also to watch it at the movie theater because I was too young to go when it was released. And it does have Susan Sarandon, which looks absolutely gorgeous. So it is a retelling of the story of Frankenstein, but in a rock kind of scene. There's Meatloaf, for example, is actually in the movie. Meatloaf, the singer, the lead singer of the band. So I thought that if you like that one, you'll definitely like this deck, which is called Gothmancy. Now this deck, there's been a couple of editions. So this is by Stephanie Alia. There's been a couple of editions of this deck. I don't necessarily know the different names of the editions. However, I do know that mine is from 2020. And this is basically showing you all of these musicians that belong to that type of goth art style, goth lifestyle, goth music style, and so on and so forth, that you can actually see in the movie, because that is basically the style that they've got. And so you will recognize many of the characters in here. We also have the Addams family, for example. At a certain point, we also have, I don't recognize all of them because they are mostly based in the 70s, I believe. But we also have, of course, Boy George. And we also have The Cure. We do have Frankenstein. We have David Bowie. and so on and so forth. So it is, if you think about a group, think about Depeche Mode as well, and you know, the way in which they were dressed, everything that they brought to the scene of the rock scene, the music scene, and is reflected also in these cards, but also it comes from, let's say, the cult that was originated thanks to the release of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I just really love this deck. The colors are really fantastic. I really like them. I also really like the art style. I think that it's a fantastic deck because it is very thematic. Obviously, it's a niche kind of deck. And, you know, you may like it or not. Obviously, if you don't like that kind of style, you would not like this deck, which is absolutely fine. If you do, however, like that style, you will love this deck because everything about it is fantastic. It is, unfortunately, also an indie deck. The cardstock is one of those buttery ones that I always refer to when I talk about the US Games decks from the 80s. If you have a greeny thought, you would know which cardstock I'm talking about. Absolutely love it. So it's very goth. It's very, well, it is called Gothmancy, obviously. So the cards are not just about music. As you can see here, we've got Eric Draven, which is the protagonist of The Crow, played by Brandon Lee. If you don't know what happened, unfortunately, Brandon Lee actually died while shooting the movie The Crow. There was a gun that was supposed to be a prop, and unfortunately it had not been switched on time. So it was an actual gun with actual bullets, and instead of firing blanks, they actually fired an actual bullet. I know that it's incredible, but Google it. It's true. It's true. That's what happened. Unfortunately, Brandon Lee, very young, he died. He died while shooting the movie. They used some digital manipulation of previous scenes shot in order to finish it. Thank goodness, because it's a fantastic movie. But it does come with some kind of sense that it might be cursed and everything. Sometimes it happens, unfortunately. I have to say, because Eric is in a band, I think that that's why they depicted him on the card as well. But what I love about it is that there's a poster behind this that says Pet Shop Boys. So I thought that was really cool. It's not the same type of music that they were playing, but it's really lovely, and I'll always like watching The Crow. I didn't necessarily enjoy the remake with, I believe, Bill Skarsgård. It's a fantastic actor, but I just do not really resonate with. I think that for me, the original one is the one, because it was fantastic. So I probably should have talked about The Crow, but this to me is, let's put it this way. So if you like The Crow or the Rocky Horror Picture Show, you will love this deck. So we are at the last three, this really long video, but I just really love to talk about them. So if you liked Nosferatu, which is rather recent, I would say, so not the original one, very German expressionism. If you liked the recent Nosferatu, also with Bill Skarsgård, by the way. Does he like to be in horror movie? You know, sometimes there's actors that just really love to be in horror movies, like Nicolas Cage. He loves making horror movies. And Patrick Wilson, so Nicolas Cage has done so many. Patrick Wilson is always in the Conjuring trilogy, but also in the Insidious trilogy. And also in another movie, what was it? In the cornfield. I think it's called In the Cornfield. I actually, don't spoil it for me, please. I'm actually watching it this weekend. So there's actors that really shine in a horror movie. So if you liked Nosferatu, this is the Nosferatu deck. There's no two ways around that. Sorry, I don't even think that I can zoom out enough to show you maybe I can. The entire box, because this is the deluxe edition. It's the Gothic Literature Tarot, and this one is by Syrian Shadow, and it's also a Kickstarter reward from a campaign from a couple of years ago. Syrian Shadow, however, does release mass market decks quite often with rock pool. So if you like his art style and everything, refer to the Earth and Bone Oracle or the Oracle of Darkness or something like that. I don't have that deck, so the name might be slightly different. That has just been released by Rockpool, and you will definitely recognize it. This one, however, is very atmospheric, and it's all about the fog. It's all about the fog. It does come, because it is a deluxe edition, it does come with a fantastic companion book, such as this one, as you can see here. So let me just show you. I don't even know, I have all of the room on my table has been taken by decks. I'm surrounded by a mess. But I like it because it's a mess with decks, so it's always cool. So this one, as you can see, is very atmospheric. Let me just zoom back in because we want to see the cards, obviously. So very atmospheric, very beautiful. It's all about the fog, that it's one key element that you can always spot in a horror movie, because, well, on the one hand, it does conjure a little bit of anxiety and fear, because it's the equivalent of smoke, but it's also because you don't know what's in the fog. Sometimes something is hiding in the fog. There's actually a couple of movies and books that are called The Fog. There's also a movie called The Mist, and also a book called The Mist by Stephen King, which I read and I really loved. So there's always this idea that something that you cannot really see is something that can scare you because it could be a monster. But it's also, you will see it in many, many movies, because it's just easier to convey that sense, that atmosphere and everything. And also it's easier to hide cables. As someone who's been working in photography and documentary for many years, I can assure you that sometimes you use the darkness and you use the fog for a reason, because you just have so many cables. It's just incredible. Cables for the lights, basically. But so in any case, I love this deck. It's really beautiful, really, really atmospheric, as I said, very, very evocative. The cardstock is a very soft linen, very luxurious, and the tactile experience is amazing. But this is my Nosferatu deck. Obviously it's referring to the Gothic literature, so there's Gothic literature that is not just about Dracula. Nosferatu is, it's still talking about Dracula, it's talking about Mina, and it's talking about the love, it's an eternal love. It's an eternal love. I just really love the love story. I love the love story. I'm always moved to tears by the love story between Count Dracul and Mina. Probably not so much in this version, in Nosferatu, but in the older Dracula with there was Keanu Reeves. And Mina was played by, I can't recall if Mina was played by Winona Ryder in that movie. I haven't watched it in a while, but that love story was definitely, to me, it felt more moving than the one portrayed in Nosferatu. It felt to me like the Mina in that Dracula with Keanu Reeves, the older one, is more like seduced by the personality of Count Dracula, whereas in Nosferatu it's all about chemistry and hormones. That looks like it is for me. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that to me, I do like to see a little bit of dialogue, expressed that way. So in any case, really, really gorgeous deck, absolutely gorgeous deck, very gothic, very dark, very atmospheric, as I said. Again, I do use this one for readings more than I use other decks that I've shown you today, but it's not my go-to deck for a divination style reading. I would probably use it for more like reading an archetype or the evolution of a person's journey in their life, moving from one stage to another. And also in some cases for grief processing readings. But it's really beautiful. It's, you know what, it's also deluxe editions. Obviously it's a collectible item. If you liked the Children of the Corn movie, you will love the Halloween Oracle by Stacey DeMarco. This is an older deck, 2-3 years ago, 4-5, by Blue Angel. It is still available, very affordable as well. This is literally my Children of the Corn deck. There is one card, and obviously, you know, because of Murphy's Law, if I'm looking for one specific card, I will not find it. But there is one specific card that looks literally like a scene of out of the movie. And I actually really like this deck. There you go. So this is, it could be one of the scenes from Children of the Corn. It is a very disturbing movie. Whenever it's disturbing for me, it feels disturbing for me because whenever there's a creepy kid, if we want to identify a horror trope, it's the creepy kid. It feels like it's so against nature that I kind of have a bit of a difficult time to try and like the movie and feel like it resonates or not. That movie, however, is I think it's based on a novella by Stephen King. I haven't read it though. I've read almost everything by Stephen King. I am a huge fan, not of the later books. I just cannot really relate to the later ones. The later one that I really loved, like really crazy love, was The Institute, which is now a TV show. Not my favorite, but the book is fantastic. As I was saying, I believe it's based on a novella by Stephen King, but it's just everything about this deck is so cool. It's true what everyone says. There's a lot of stock images used, particularly when there's a skull. All the skulls look the same, apart from maybe a couple of different colors or, different doodling. I don't mind. I know, I understand that. I know that a lot of people use clip art. I know that a lot of people use stock images. So be it. I do too. I use Canvas. So, it doesn't bother me. Is the deck resonating with me? Are the keywords resonating? Can I work with it? Is it a cool deck? Is it something that I can, use together with another deck? And, me, I love pairings. And all the questions I answer with yes. So it's still a really cool deck. I really, really like it. And it's just because of that card, I'm always thinking of Children of the Corn whenever I look at this deck. It's definitely my... If you liked that movie, which is a movie that I don't know that a lot of people liked, probably because of the creepy kid kind of trope, but you will definitely love this deck. And last but not least, let's talk about a Disney horror movie. So I watched at least 5 times The Haunted Mansion, the one from 2023, with Rosario Dawson and Danny DeVito and Owen Wilson, for example, and other characters. I loved that movie so much that it's my go-to, especially first half an hour. The kid in that movie is just the funniest character ever. It's just so smart, and it's a smart kind of funny that doesn't want to be forced funny, but it ends up being hilarious. There's just this scene at the beginning of, obviously there's this mother and son, and they find this house on Craigslist, which is, in itself is kind of funny. And they go there, and it's a haunted house. Of course, it's a haunted house. It's in the title. And so they get in, and they spend the first night, or they try and spend the first night there. but the kid already sees a ghost, and it's really, really scary. The mother hasn't, so the kid runs down the stairs, and he's like, no, we need to go. We need to go. And the mother says, no, it's gonna grow on you. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be a nice place. We're gonna make it our home. I'm gonna light up a vanilla scented candle. It's gonna be a game changer. And the kid goes, well, it's the way in which he says it just made me laugh for like 10 minutes. And it's just one after another. It's really, like, it's not a comedy. It doesn't want to be. It is a haunted house movie. But it is really cool and beautiful. The cinematography is fantastic. It is the usual trope of the haunted house. There's a malevolent presence and there's other ghosts and everything. And you have to find the reason why they're there and so on and so forth. I just really loved it. So if you liked that movie, you will love the Dark Mansion Tarot, because it does have that whimsical component that it shares it with the movie as well. So this is a sought after deck. I know of a lot of people that really want to buy this deck, and they never do because they think that it's super duper expensive. I bought it directly from Taroteca Studio. Is it Taroteca Studio? Yeah. From Taroteca Studio in the website. I paid the normal price and the shipping was like $5. And it came in like 3 weeks, which is rather normal. It comes from Europe. So I honestly don't see why people don't. If you want it, it doesn't cost $500. It doesn't even cost $100. I believe I paid $70. I'm not entirely sure because it was a few years ago. And actually, maybe it's not even on stock anymore. So apologies for that. I didn't even check. I should have. But in any case, this, if you can find it, this is an incredible deck, and it's also very, very similar when it comes to the style of the images to Tim Burton's movies. So I didn't put any Tim Burton's movie here. I do love his movies, of course I do. My favorite one is actually ironically not Nightmare Before Christmas, but The Corpse Bride. That's my favorite one. But in any case, this is the way in which he actually stylizes his characters, like stick figures, and then big heads. So it is really, really similar to those movies. But this is such an amazing deck. It does have that kind of whimsical component that I was talking to you about. At the same time, you do feel the haunting of these figures, and it does resonate with that particular horror trope. It's a fantastic deck. I do have the Rose Petal Older edition, so this one is the edition that sticks. It just, all of the cards stick together. However, I have been using this for so many times that after a while, this kind of cardstock actually smoothens the front of the cards out, and it becomes so much easier to shuffle and to use. And I honestly do not even remember a time, I just forgot quickly that at the beginning it was really difficult to fan out or to overhand shuffle. Really gorgeous art style. Some of these are so incredibly beautiful in their whimsical nature that look at the star card, one of the most beautiful star cards I've ever seen. And so this is definitely one of the decks that I feel like recommending. If you like the haunted house, the haunted mansion movie, you would definitely love the Dark Mansion Tarot. Well done if you're still here. As a matter of fact, let's do this. If you're still watching, if you made it till this point, just let me know in the comments below which one is of the movies that I told you about, which one is your favorite, and if you do agree that the deck that I presented in a way reminds you of the vibes of the movie. And so that will mean that I know that you watched this video till the end, and I really appreciate you. And I will see you soon with another Spooktober related video. Bye.